Hi, welcome to my Drag King makeup tutorial. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to show you the way that I've been putting on makeup when I use actual sort of hair to do the facial hair. So what I'm after is I'm after a look that is male impersonation style, so more like something that looks quite natural and something that would be suitable for the stage. So it might be a little bit too much or a little bit more than what you would put on if you weren't going to actually be on the stage. Sometimes it's really hard to tell whether you've got too much makeup or not enough in terms of looking natural. So yeah, I'll be showing you how I've been doing it for quite a long time. There's a few people that have been wanting me to do this, and so I'm doing it for those people, and yeah, so hopefully you'll get something from it. So first of all, I might take you through the different materials that I've got that I'm going to be using. So I've got just a couple of foundations. One's a bit darker than the other one. They are more what I would use in everyday makeup than stage makeup, so these aren't terribly thick, or they're just regular kind of foundations. They're pretty old, as you can see. They've nearly run out. They're old ones from the Body Shop. I use, for a very long time, I've been using these face paints, just ordinary face paint, and it's so worn I can't even see what brand it was originally. But I've had this one literally for most of the time that I've been performing. So I've been using this one for something like 14 years. And you can see how well it's worn. This is another one. This is what, a brown. So I use a lot of the black, and this is a dark brown that I use. I use this for toning. And giving a bit of sort of shape to my face. It's often, what I found is black will often work better, but it depends on what your skin tone is when you're wanting to get a 5 o'clock shadow and that type of thing. Dark brown really works for most people, and for toning you would think that this would be way too dark, but it's actually quite good, so I use that. I use crepe hair. So this is what crepe hair is like when you get it. It comes in these long strands, and you cut off what you're going to need. Now when I use this for the drag makeup that I do, I'm after more of a stubbled effect. I cut it up like this, so it's like really fine. As you can see, it's very fine. And that is actually a mix that I've made to kind of go with my natural hair colour a bit better. So it's actually a mixture of a few different coloured crepe hairs. You can use the crepe hair in a different way, where you sort of cut it off and you tease it out, and you can steam it to straighten it, and you can cut it, stick it on your face so it's these long strands, which you can then cut back to get the facial hair that you want. A lot of people will do that if they're going to actually make a beard. So I haven't actually ever had a go at making a beard, but this is what I use. Now I have heard there are people that sometimes use their own natural hair. Now one of the things that I was warned about right at the very beginning, before I started doing any of this kind of makeup, is that your own natural hair, or some people have actually used pubic hair, their own pubic hair. The problem with that can be that when you stick it on, is that it can kind of get sucked up into the pores of your skin, and you can get like infections from it. And I have actually had that happen from using the crepe hair before. When I've had it on for very many hours, you clean the makeup off and you think, what is this really dark, revolting blackhead or something? Squeeze it and a hair will come out. So it's something to be really careful of when you're using crepe hair or your own hair. And I know a lot of people do use their own hair, like I said, but I've never actually done that, because I've also got here, apart from those other face paints, I've got a bit of white, which I now add in, the face paints are mostly for my eyebrows and the rest of my face, not the hair that you'll see me put on. But the white I've started to add as a detail into my eyebrows because my natural hair is quite grey. Also a bit of powder, just regular powder. And I've got a collection of brushes here. So, and these are actually just, this is a makeup brush of some description. So a bit of a thicker makeup brush, another thick makeup brush, really fine brush, which is I used to do my eyebrows and like details with. Now this is just a regular brush that I got from like a $2 shop. It's not actually a makeup brush. And these two I've just got in case I need them. They are also just from a $2 shop, so they're not special brushes in any way, shape or form. When I show people how to do drag makeup, I quite often like to show them using the most basic of materials so that it's more accessible to anybody who wants to give it a go. Not everybody can afford expensive makeup and that type of thing, and these are the things that I've used for very many years up until sort of more recently, and more recently I've gone out and I've bought some more sort of expensive types of makeup. This is a little container of Pros-Aid, so that's Pros-Aid, A-I-A-D, and this is used to stick on the actual facial hair. You can use spirit gum, and in fact I've only recently discovered using this. I'd always use spirit gum. You might need a pair of scissors to cut up the little bits of hair. For extra makeup, a bit of mascara, a bit of eyeliner, and I've also got, just in case I need it, some cotton tips, some tissues, one of these makeup blending brush things, sponge things, and if you want to get really fancy, you can actually use a beard trimmer at the end of it when you've got the makeup on. So that's the basic tools that I use to put my facial hair on with. So what I've done to begin with is I've actually just put all my hair out of the way. I've washed my face, so my face has got no makeup or cream or anything like that on it. If you're going to use anything to stick facial hair on with, whether it's Pros-Aid or whether it's spirit gum, you really need to make sure that your skin is free of any moisturizers or anything like that, because it was more likely to peel off if you've got those things on your skin before you start. You could, if you wanted, to swipe the area with an alcohol swab to make sure that it's like really clean. Now I find that generally I don't use actual facial hair very often, and the reason is because I'm living in Canberra in Australia, and it's okay in the middle of winter, but in the summer it can get pretty hot here. It can get really hot when you're performing, and I have found that a lot of the time the glues that I have been using start to peel off after a number of hours. So I tend to actually paint my makeup on, draw it on, rather than use actual hair. However, hair has a lot of its own really good things about it. If you're somebody who's exploring gender, for example, and it's more about exploring gender than actually doing performance, using actual facial hair putting the actual facial hair on can create a really amazing kinesthetic experience where you feel hairy, and that can be something that can be really helpful if you are somebody who is exploring gender. Okay, so other things that you might want to use is like a loose powder is really handy. and I've got a couple of extra sponge. I have a couple of extra sponges here. Now normally I use a brush to put my foundation on, but I'm actually in the middle of moving house and I've got a lot of my things packed up, so I don't have that to actually show you at the moment. But I do have other things here that I can show you that you can use to apply your makeup. Okay, to start off I'm going to use a bit of the pale foundation. This comes out, sort of squeezes out, so I need to put it on my wrist, and I'm going to apply it to the top part of my face, starting off with kind of down the middle. Basically I'm putting this where I am not going to be using putting any of the facial hair. Sometimes it's a little bit tricky to know where it will end. But you can always clean off the areas just before you put the glue down on your face that you'll then stick the hair to. So I'm sort of going over my cheekbones a bit. Now if I had a thicker foundation, which would be better for stage, this one is not so great. I wouldn't be needing to put on as many layers of this. Okay, so I've got that down. And the next thing I'm going to do is just put a bit of powder onto the top of that. So you can see I've left kind of a beard area. Now the next thing I'll do is I'm actually going to put, because this needs a little bit of time to sort of sit on the skin and to settle. So now I'm going to put a 5 o'clock shadow just around the outside of my face. So the thing that's important about doing this is that it frames your face. It creates a frame, part of a frame for your face, and it helps with the illusion of looking male, because what we're trying to do with this makeup is we're trying to emphasize features that are stereotypically masculine. Now I know masculine can be all kinds of things, but we're going for really stereotypical stuff that people think of as masculine. So we've got to highlight some of those features rather than soften them. So, and it's important with this to just get it under your chin a bit. Don't just have a ring around, sort of blend it in. Now some people do their makeup all the way down their throats and make it an Adam's apple and that type of thing. I'm not going to do that today. I'm just going to show you the makeup bit. So I've got that on. So you can see that's the face paint, and I've just used that dry, and that actually works really quite well dry. Okay, so that's had a couple of minutes to kind of sit there. So now I'm going to do a little bit of the contouring, which happens on the rest of the face. So I've just got a paintbrush here, and I'm going to use this brown face paint, and I'm going to use it dry as well to begin with. So what you want to do is you want to make your forehead look square, to square it out and give a more masculine kind of look. So you kind of start off with the temples. So you're getting that kind of square shape, and around the edges of your face. It looks quite sort of blocky at the moment as it goes on, but it will be blended in. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a forehead, which you'll see, if you look at the moment, you'll see a lot of drag kings doing this forehead, and I don't know if the drag king Damien Deluxe is to credit to all of them, but Damien does this type of makeup, and I've started to sort of do it as a way of doing foreheads. I think it looks really good. So it's kind of like creating like a line above the eyebrow, sort of going up to the top of your face. Now, if you don't want this to be as obvious, you can blend it back a lot more than what I'm currently doing. Mind you, this will be blended in quite a lot by the time I'm done. Okay, so I'm just going to leave that there like that for the moment, and I'm just going to let that sit there. Now I'm going to start doing the facial hair. So what is useful is, I have found, is to kind of draw the shape on before you start gluing, because it can get really hard to know whether you got it even and all that kind of thing. So I'll go back to using this, and I'm going to use this, actually I'll use this really fine brush. Now I'm going to actually wet this a little bit. And I'm going to draw on, I think I'll start off with the mo. I just find that it helps, and you won't see this by the time I'm done. So change the shape of it a little bit. Now I'm just going to fix that line up a bit with the cotton tip. Now I actually went ahead and drew that onto my, above my lip, on top of the makeup, which was probably not the best thing to do. So normally I would wipe that clear, wipe it off, maybe use an alcohol swab. Okay, so we're going to start with the glue. So the idea is you put a little bit on, a little bit of glue, you let it sort of semi-dry a little bit, so you sort of let it leave it for a few seconds, then you put the hair on. Now I'm going to try this method, which I haven't actually done before, so it may or may not work for me and I may have to revert back to my normal way, but I'm actually using a brush to apply the hair, which is basically, I think, about just dipping the brush in and applying it this way. So I've got my Prosade, and just paint a little bit on. I actually I'm a bit short-sighted too, so I find that's another reason to draw the lines on if you can't see so great. So I'll just put that on. So you don't want it to be too thick, but you don't want it to be too thin either. So just a thin layer. Just let it sit for a few seconds. You can sort of feel it drying on your skin. So it feels quite wet at first. Now I'm just going to put the brush in there like that. Oh, that works quite well. So that's going on quite thin. I'll continue with that. So it looks a bit white and then it sort of goes a bit clearer as it dries. It's also important to stretch your face around as you're doing this, because otherwise it dries sort of solid and then you get gaps. Like when you go to lip sync, you'll get gaps in the hair. And you will probably get this hair everywhere, like it just goes everywhere. So it's a good idea to wear a smock or something, cover up if you're in costume, or depending on, I usually put my makeup on after I've got most of my costume on, because otherwise it can be a bit hard. So I'm actually going to do the other side, and I'm going to do it the way I have always done it, and you'll see the difference in what it looks like, because it does look a bit different from this normally. So while that's a bit wet, I'm just going to blend this out a bit. So what I would normally do is pick it up in little bunches and push it against my skin. So that's actually a lot a lot thicker than the other side. I think I do prefer my own way than using the brush, but if you wanted more of a stubble effect, use a brush to pick it up as I was doing. So, but I'm going to do the rest of it just using it with my fingers, because there's another little trick that I want to show you. Okay, just let that dry. So the other bit of toning that I didn't do before, that I'll actually do now, is I didn't do my cheeks. So I've just got this other thicker brush here. So again, dry. And what you do is you find where your cheekbone is, which can take a bit of practice. And if you are somebody with a rounder face, or somebody who's not really thin, so if you've got a chubby face, it can be harder to find your cheekbone. But cheekbone is basically in here, and it sort of ends there, the toning. So you just do a line. And you need to take it right up to the hairline. And you just look at the mirror straight on to sort of get the evenness. Okay, so this is dried up. If you're going to use Pros-Aide and you're going to use one of these, probably want to keep that just for your hair, because it does get bits in there, and if you're trying to use it for other makeup, it's not going to work. Okay, so I'm going to put a bit more powder on those bits of my face. So you can be working on the other layers while you're while you're waiting for this bit glue to be drying. Now I'm deliberately sort of putting this on a bit messy, and you'll see why in a minute. Just using a dry bit of, blend that up. Now, another bit of the toning that you need to do is actually around your eyes and nose. So this is not unlike what a drag queen would do, the highlighting the nose. Around the eyes is a bit different. You actually go sort of up around your eye a bit as well with this toner. This is not the best brush. It'd be better if with a flatter brush to be doing this bit. I'm going to put a bit more powder on that. Okay. So I'm going to do sideburns. Now with sideburns, it's important that they go right up into your hairline. And ideally I would clean off this bit here where I've got makeup. I would clean off the skin a bit so that the glue will stick better. Because sideburns tend to are great for highlighting cheeks. It's a little bit crooked. That's okay, I can fix that up. Okay, so you can see I've got the sideburns drawn on. Now normally it's really important with drag makeup, with any makeup I guess, but with King makeup I always check in a side mirror that like my sideburns are going up into my hairline enough and that type of thing, because it's very hard to tell when you're looking straight on and when you're looking directly into a mirror whether they are. So it's a good idea to get another little mirror to check that sort of thing. So same process with the sideburns. they're a little bit easier because they don't move as much as what the facial hair around the rest of your face does. I'm doing this quite quickly, and that's so that you watching this don't get bored if you're still watching. And I'm not being as careful because the sideburns you don't have to be as careful with really, because they just don't get the movement that the rest of your face gets. Okay, so I'm just looking at the rest of my face. Just give it a bit of a gentle brush. Okay, so you can see there's a bit of a difference. This side's a bit thinner than this side. So if you want more of a stubbly look, I suggest using the brush. Dipping it in works really well. If you want it a bit thicker, pick it up with your fingers and do it. Okay, so the other thing that I can see that's happening here is you can see the lines where I've actually drawn the beardy bits on to make the shape. So just soften it a little bit. If you get any sort of patches in there, you notice, oh, that looks a bit bald, you can actually fill it in. Like just use the face paint if that's what you're using, or whatever other kind of makeup, and kind of patch it in. You can do it so that you've got like a little bit of hair and then also a little bit of other kind of makeup. You can combine them. That can work really well. So it's a bit hard for me to see looking in the mirror, but I would normally go and check on the sides that I've gone up there high enough. But from this angle it looks okay. So that's pretty much the actual sticking the hair on bit. Now, if you want to get really fancy, you can actually use a beard trimmer. So This was just from a $2 shop. Cost about $5 from a $2 shop. So if it's a little bit messy, you can use a bead trimmer to get the shape happening. Okay, so this is looking not too bad. So the thing that I would be doing now is perhaps adding a little bit more 5 o'clock shadow. 5 o'clock shadow. Now the thing about facial hair, as far as a king goes, is facial hair, makeup like this, or whether this is actual hair or actual kind of makeup that you put on, has the same impact as lipstick. It draws attention to your mouth. It makes it easier to see your mouth moving when you're lip syncing. So that's kind of a part of what makes it really good. You don't have to have facial hair as a king. You can do whatever you want. But that's the purpose that it serves. And sideburns are great for highlighting cheeks. They're also give you that, like, give your face more definition. The 5 o'clock shadow gives your face definition, and this sort of look around the forehead is what also contributes to sort of broadening what your face actually looks like. The makeup on the forehead makes your face look squarer and gives it more of a masculine kind of look. Now, anyone can be a drag king, so guys can do this makeup too and highlight, you know, somebody's assigned male at birth can do this, and it can highlight their own features even more than what they are, and they might have soft features anyway, so this might be helpful to give strength to whatever their character is that they're trying to do. So now the thing that's kind of missing at the moment is I would highlight my nose and across my cheeks a little bit more with a lighter type of makeup. So I'm just going to don't actually have any lighter makeup here with me at the moment, so I'm just going to use a tiny bit more of the original foundation that I use, which has now on the rest of my face has mostly been blended in and sort of darker. So I'm just going to give my nose that kind of line here, just up in the middle of the forehead. So cheeks then. Okay, I'm going to add some more loose powder. Just to the areas where I've put it mostly. Okay, so that looks a bit messy, but that's fine, we'll leave that. Now I've got to do eyebrows. Now eyebrows are like what eye makeup can do in terms of drawing attention to your eyes. Doing eyebrows is really important because it does emphasize again what you're doing with your face. If you want to give good face, you need to make sure you got your eyebrows. When I first started doing drag, it was basically no toning or anything. It was just sticking the hair on or drawing the hair on. There wasn't toning, there wasn't anything like that, from what I saw anyway. And a lot of kings back then would, I'm talking about 15 years ago in Australia, would leave their eyebrows, and it was really obvious that they hadn't done their eyebrows, and it was a real, I used to always just look at it and go, oh my god, eyebrows. So eyebrows are really important. So the idea is you are thickening your eyebrows up. Now, if we want this to look realistic, to go with the hair, we want it to look like hairs, so we want little brush strokes and sort of filling in. So you notice this is wet. For this, I'm just going over my own natural eyebrows. But just making them a bit thicker. Okay, so that just needs to dry a bit. It dries fairly quickly. And now I'm going to just brush on some powder. So you can brush it on, or use the puff thing. The idea is that it's to sort of blend it. So sometimes I like to use a bit of mascara and a bit of eyeliner as well. It just kind of adds a bit. I just use a tiny bit. And sometimes I put on a little bit of eyeshadow. It's just a tiny bit. And mascara can be quite good. A little bit of mascara. I think my eyebrows are a bit uneven actually. Okay, so that's pretty much it done. Now you can use a setting spray on your face, or I just use hairspray a lot of the time. Pour, but you can't be bothered, or maybe you just prefer it, but you can use a bit of hairspray. I usually spray it and then kind of from a distance, make sure your eyes are closed, spray it, or maybe spray a bit into the air and walk into it. Okay. Oh. Okay, so now usually what I do is, this is my makeup, so when I go out, when I leave the house to perform, I usually take some powder. I usually take a powder and a pencil eyeliner, maybe a couple of Q-tips and some tissues or something, in case I need to fix something up. Usually if you run your hand through your eyebrow or something like that accidentally, you can fix it up easily just with a pencil. Okay, so I've put my hair like this. Put my hair up and out of the way. So now I'll just and there we have it.